Now we're getting into the heart of pagination. And pagination is a little bit complicated, but there's nothing particularly Facebook complicated about it. It just is complicated. And let me just walk you through pagination so that you can see what we are going to deal with. I have set it up for this example to show 3 items on a page. That's the first element of pagination. How many items can appear on a page? I also am displaying information that I am showing, in this case, 1 to 3 items out of a total number of items. Here I am going to pages, not to items. These numbers are pages. For example, if I go to the last page, you'll see that when it loads, what I am going to be looking at are the last items out of the 55 items. So that, for example, the last page has only 1 item on it. I'm looking at items 55 to 55 out of 55. If I go to the previous page, I will be looking at items 52 through 54. And what pagination does is it knows when to show a first and last page. It shows here in regular type and no link the current page. I can go usually to the next and the previous, if there are next and previous, and I can go to the first and last pages. We're talking here about pages. Here we're talking about individual entries. I can also have this navigation menu at the bottom of the page in a footer as well as at the top. Now, in keeping track of these items, I have to count in 2 different ways. 2 sets of 2 different ways. I have to keep track of items numbers here, like item 1 to 54 or item 55 to 55 out of the total number of items. So here I am counting from 1 up to the total number of items. I also have to keep track of the page numbers. So if I go to the first page, I will be seeing on page 1 items 1 through 3, if indeed there are 3 items. And then, just to make things more interesting, when I get into the SQL, I'm going to have to start counting from 0, because SQL counts items from 0. And that's a key part of pagination, because I am only retrieving the items that I need. So we've looked at that. Now let's go back and look inside the code to see what we're doing. I'm unloading data from the array of params where it came in, and as I've done in other contexts, I'm setting local variables to default values or to things that have been passed in. Now, for pagination, what I will need is the offset. That is the number of the item from which I want to start. And I also need the count of the number of items that I want to retrieve. And what you'll see here is that if I've passed in a limit parameter, I set a variable limit to be whatever I've passed in. But more often what I'm going to do is, if I'm passed in a base URL, and this is what enables, this is the URL that will be called back, mypics.php, friendspics.php. This is the URL that will be called back, and if it's set, then I am going to pick up offset and row count, which are just up here. I've already unloaded them from the params, and I'm going to construct the text string limit, offset, and row count. And what that is going to be used for, here's where I set limit, and if I come down here to constructing the SQL call, you can see at the very end of it I fill in limit, which will be that string of the word limit and the offset and the row count. And that is going to be appended to each of the SQL calls that I am constructing. So that's how we're going to be doing the calls. Now let's take a look at the last part of the puzzle, which is how I am passing these parameters back and forth.